You're listening to the TV Obsessive channel, presented by tvobsessive.com. Okay, welcome back to episode 17 of the TV Obsessive podcast. I'm Cameron Crane, the executive editor for tvobsessive.com. I'm joined here by Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for the site. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I am doing really, really well. I am looking forward to today's episode of television. We are going to talk about one of my favorites. It made me wonder, have you ever been stranded out in a desert? I've never even been in a desert. Have you even been in a
I
desert
have
before?
I have no desert experience. I do wonder. I honestly, I watch some of these scenes in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and I think like, well, I'd be dead like fast. You know what I mean? If I was wondering, is this at all plausible?
Yeah. What's we will obviously spoil this, but in Better Call Saul, there's the episode where Saul and Mike are stuck out in the desert and somehow survives it. No, just end it now. I'm good.
That episode, and this week gets a little off track, but that episode was so distressing. And part of what I love about Better Call Saul is like it's a prequel show. I
Yes.
presume everyone knows this. This isn't wild spoilers, right?
Right.
So like it's a prequel show. You know because Breaking Bad exists that they do not die. And yet I'm sitting there the whole time being like, oh my God, are they gonna die?
That's
It's
right.
just I just so oh my God, so stressful.
Oh,
Anyway, yeah, we're going to talk about Breaking Bad, Ozymandias in the latter part of the pod here today.
yes.
As always, we're going to talk about some recent news and so on and so forth. We are recording a day later than usual for what it's worth. For regular listeners, apologies. So it's Wednesday. It's October 11th. What's caught your eye this week, Ryan?
Well, something that's interesting is we continue to look at these one strike that's ended, one strike that's ongoing. SAG-AFTRA strike continues. Lots of shows are coming back, but a show we've talked about in the past few weeks may not be coming back. This news has popped up that Drew Barrymore writers don't have any interest in returning right now after this whole thing where she said she was going to continue without her writers. Is this just getting her karma, getting what she deserves?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, if you're going to scab, this is nothing compared to the labor movement 100 years ago,
Right.
But yeah, it was striking to me. I don't know if I'd say I was surprised because of how all of that went. That she was going to bring the show back without her writers. They took offense to that. That makes sense to me. And so even though she did reverse course, that now when the strike's over, they don't want to work for her anymore. Makes sense. I mean, I think the show's coming back. I don't, at this point, if they hire other writers, those writers aren't scabs. If they follow the kind of plan they were gonna do before, where they like don't have writers, whatever that means.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna come back. But yeah, that way it was striking to me that it was like, oh, the strike's over. Like, oh, guys, come back to work. They go, no,
Yeah. And I mean, I do feel for them and empathize with their situation. They clearly want to get back to work and get back to their job, but this is probably a nice leverage point for them. If they say we're not coming back to work for this person that wanted to do it without us, they can hopefully parlay that into something else. And of course, we're all pro writers on this side of the table.
yeah, absolutely. So I hope they find work elsewhere, and I presume that's what they're saying is we're just going to pursue other opportunities from it.
Yeah.
The SAG-AFTRA and AMPTP, as I understand it, have been holding pretty regular meetings, but absolutely nothing coming out so far in terms of
Yeah.
there being progress, other than the fact that they keep meeting. Like
Yes, they
that's a
do.
positive side. There was at one point with the writer's strike where they met in early August and then like they didn't meet again
Right.
for
And
six
almost
weeks or
almost
something.
at a daily point now. I think maybe Tuesday was we're splitting up into our sides, sort of review the materials that have been brought to the table. We'll discuss some of the points that have been brought in, but it's been in almost every day for a good while now.
Yeah, for at least like a week and a half. I think they started, on the second or something like that, maybe. So look, that's encouraging. Hopefully they're hashing it out. In the meantime, Saturday Night Live is going to come back, which I didn't realize, but I guess they can manage to do that because it's under the network code and because the writer strike's over.
Yeah, so I mean, clearly, yeah, the writers can come back. I was curious about this. I saw that Pete Davidson is going to be the host. Now, Pete clearly is a former cast member of Saturday Night Live. Now, he's also moved almost primarily into acting. So I don't know what exactly if he's in an exempt position, if what this, how the code follows on this, but he's in a nebulous position here, being able to host, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine because it's under a different agreement with game shows and talk shows, and like actors are allowed to do this. They're not allowed to promote their work though, so I think that would still hold here. They're not allowed to promote struck work, which at various points I've wondered, is there a more precise definition of what anyway?
Yeah.
Like, is struck work just stuff you would be making right now, or things you made 20 years ago, or maybe there's an answer to that I just never really found. Anyway, I've been understanding, so SNL can come back, but they can't promote things, and that goes still. And of course, the production of other films, TV shows, and so on. Still no actors, so.
Yeah, and there seems to be quite a bit of that. We're getting a lot of news I've seen that of premiere dates, shows moved, shows relocated. This is just, in my world that I'm paying attention to, Marvel Television is completely reshuffling not only dates of their shows, but how they do them and the structure which they're going to put them together and how often they're going to do them. So now that at least the writers can get back to work, we're starting to get a lot of this feedback on what's going to happen.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. I saw this today, so but that Marvel, as I understood it, they're basically saying, oh, this is kind of funny because they're basically saying, like, we're going to shift plans and we're going to start making TV like it's TV. It was just like, what were you doing before? I mean, I know they were doing it like it was a limited series, like it was a film, and we'll like take care of stuff in post production, and like they had to somehow learn the hard way that TV is different, and now they're shifting to what just like the standard kind of TV production model, as I understand it.
Yeah, so, I got some advice for Marvel. Just make well-written, good TV shows. That's my advice.
Well, I mean, if they set out to make TV shows instead of making segmented films, maybe that'll help them.
Exactly.
So yeah, what else? You see this thing Jerry Seinfeld said during one of his acts, like, there's a surprise.
The most cryptic message I've ever seen. I mean, not just out of Jerry Seinfeld, but about a episode, some sort of surprise, unknown, unseen secret about the finale. He's going to reveal.
I've got a secret. Now, I saw something today that unfortunately I think might be on the right track, speculating that there's a good chance that this is going to be a Super Bowl commercial.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
And once I read that, I thought, oh, that's probably.
Well, see, we've already got that. I just yesterday saw Jason Alexander on a commercial talking about something, yada, yada, yada. So, I mean, that's disappointing if that's what it is. But you're probably right.
That probably lands. I think I read that in IndieWire, so I don't want to take personal credit for it. But, and they did already do something of a Seinfeld reunion on Curb Your Enthusiasm, which was kind of cool.
Yes.
So I don't know if they were to actually revive Seinfeld and pick up after the finale. I don't know how I feel about that. I definitely watch it. I think the finale is very good.
Yes.
Out there and say that, like, I will defend it, but like, I don't know, man. Prison Break or something. It could be kind of funny.
Are there some shows, maybe Seinfeld, maybe the one we're talking about today, and this could segue into something else we saw this week, that are just, they're locked down, they are set in stone, there just would be no feasible way to sequel them, to reboot them, to, I guess I consider Seinfeld and the show we're going to talk about today maybe in that category.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could do it. You could say, hey, we're just going to like revive Seinfeld, but like, they got out of jail a while ago, guys. Like, how long do you think you're in jail for breaking these Good Samaritan laws? It's not 25 years,
Yeah.
I don't know if they said how long they were sentenced to, but anyway, don't do that. And I don't know, man. It's a Super Bowl ad, and I don't need it.
Well, how about a Walt Jr. Breaking Bad? You interested in that? Because that circulated this week.
Right. So there was an interview. I believe it was the original interviews in Variety. I'll put the link in the show notes with Vince Gilligan, and he was asked this. Vince Gilligan's not into the idea. I started wondering, are there people out there clamoring for this? And so
I had
my
never considered it.
me neither. So I figured like my best shot at finding people who are begging for Walt Jr. spinoff is the Breaking Bad subreddit.
Yeah.
So I went there. No, they're not into it. Like you find a couple of things, people are like, nah, you
Yeah.
know. So I think we're all on the same page there. It did get me thinking about it a little bit. I mean, Gilligan said it'd be too depressing, or
Yes.
potentially the wrong lesson. It's like, again, I don't know what you would do personally if somehow this, because he did say in the interview, hey, if my next project, he's working on this sci-fi show with Ray Stevenhorn, which I'm
Mhm.
sort of looking forward to. I don't think it's named yet. He did say something like, if my next couple projects totally fail, like maybe I'll go back to that well. Um, so if there's any chance of it at all, I guess what I would say to Vince Gilligan is let's just pick up with it and like have it be very kind of boring. Like, no, Walt Jr. is not involved in crime or anything.
Yeah.
It's just like
Yeah.
Walt Jr. is now a 30 something, and this is what his life is like in the
Yeah.
aftermath of this trauma.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing you can do that would be like kind of respectable in my mind.
I would agree with that. And I think Gilligan touched on this. Don't want to do that to the character, right? With no spoilers about the show or anything. I just don't want to do that to the character. He's very endearing.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it is. I think part of why it comes up is it is kind of one of the only semi-open questions. You know,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
what exactly happens to Walt Jr. Is what exactly happens to Skyler?
Yep.
What happens to Holly? Let's give Holly a spinoff.
There you go. Holly finds the Michael Myers mask of her father and decides to go into the business. And
Yeah,
yeah,
not
there you
yet,
go.
not yet. Give it another 10 years. She needs to be
Yeah.
like 20.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh
Um,
boy.
yeah. Other older TV news, even older. We hit on this before, Moonlighting, but I wanted to mention one. Moonlighting did come to Hulu yesterday,
Yeah.
and I was reading that it includes some scenes and such that have been thought to be lost, um, which is very cool. Like there was a DVD release, but the
Yes.
DVD release has been out of print. But also, the DVD release didn't have a couple of these cold opens,
I see.
and there's still issues with the music. But apparently, from what I was reading, they managed to get like all of the important music in this on Hulu now, which that too wasn't quite the case on the DVD release. As I understand it, I haven't seen the DVD release. I don't remember the original Moonlighting. I'm getting kind of excited to go watch Moonlighting, so probably I will have done that. I don't know if I'll make some time between this week and next. And
I kind of love that Moonlighting has become one of your passion projects here. I think that maybe a spin-off podcast is in order where you go episode by episode. There's you certainly would be a first mover there on the Moonlighting rewatch.
yeah, I mean, people are probably doing it. I don't know, man. Maybe you haven't encountered this. I have encountered excitement in the world about the Moonlighting being on Hulu.
Listen, if nothing else, I mean, as we all know, we're not going to get any more Bruce Willis acting, right?
Yeah,
So anytime that we can have a chance to go back and revisit things we haven't seen that he's done, there's a lot of hours here apparently.
and I'm curious. It's one of those things. It's like a really esteemed show, and I don't know if you've ever done this. I have in the past. Like at one point, I thought I'm going to watch Hill Street Blues.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I didn't make it very far. It wasn't that it was bad; like it was pretty good, but it felt old. The pacing feels slower
Yeah.
in some of these older shows. So yeah, I don't know. Um, what else on your radar?
Thing that caught my eye this week, I guess Brian Cox needs a new project after Succession ended and after that show has come to its conclusion. So he is now hosting a reality show a James Bond adventure reality show. Have you seen anything about this where people are competing in James Bond type adventures, and Brian Cox is like the villainous mastermind putting them through all the paces of this thing? This was kind of caught my eye. Do you see anything about this?
I have not. I have seen him on some direct TV commercials.
Yeah. So he's been out pitching DirecTV. He was actually out one day, giving a pretty impassioned speech at the strikes. I think I saw him do this, and so apparently, no more Logan Roy. He is going to host a reality show. Putting this sort of like, what's that? What's the reality show where they go around the world?
The Amazing Race.
Amazing Race, yeah. So it's sort of like that on steroids, but they're doing parkour off of cranes and blowing up buildings around the world. It's things like this. So it's sort of you want your chance to drive an Aston Martin and be like James Bond and win some money and outsmart Brian Cox. This is your chance.
I mean, yeah, it could be fun.
Yeah,
I used to watch The Amazing Race. I think it's still airing.
I think so too.
I used to watch it when. I mean, man, what, like 20 years ago or something?
Yeah.
Almost. There was a time that doesn't feel all that long ago in my lifetime when, prior to streaming, I'm not sure if we even had cable living in that place I was living at that point around 20 years ago. And so, like, The Amazing Race is watchable,
Yeah.
and then. I'm thinking about when I didn't have cable, and we used to watch reruns of like Seinfeld and King of the Hill at 10 p.m. And what else? Who was that guy on PBS? This is the kind of anyway. Whatever. I don't know. It sounds kind of cool. Maybe
well,
this is
007 : Road to a Million, hosted by Brian Cox on Prime Video, coming out in November. If you're at all interested.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I hope that they like have little gadgets.
Yeah,
and to like
put
solve
a laser
puzzles
and
with the
watch,
little gadgets.
Yeah.
It could be kind of cool.
That's all on my end. There's quite a bit of news going on. I guess we'll check in as soon as can next week with the strikes and everything else happening.
Yeah, sounds good. Hit on what we've been watching. I don't have all that much that's new. The Changeling's wrapping up on Friday. I know that I've been all over the place on this show. Kind of. I can't recommend it ultimately. I think that I know that some people really like it because I've seen them saying so on social media and on the internet and publishing glowing reviews and stuff like that. So perhaps it's just not for me. I will say this. This is mild spoiler territory, but it comes out on Friday. We're right up against it. This is not a limited series.
Oh, okay.
I feel like it was billed as a limited series. I finished the finale, or even while I was watching the finale, I was like, wait a minute, they want more show. It's obvious. And like, that's fine. I just think it's weird that I found myself checking my sanity and doing a little Googling. And I saw some things referring to it as a limited series. So I don't know if they're stretching that definition now.
Yeah.
To like, it's a limited series. We have two planned seasons. I don't know. I thought limited series meant one season and done. Like a mini series.
I just assume now with all new shows, especially with streaming, that every new entry that we see is a one season limited series, unless we hear otherwise. Yeah, I've not seen anything about it moving on beyond one.
Well, but then some people said it. I don't know. I feel like it infected my viewing experience to some degree.
Okay.
That's why I feel like it's almost like an anti-spoiler if people haven't watched it at all. If it's out there and you think, like, I think that my expectation that everything was going to wrap up in these 8 episodes, may have tainted a little bit my enjoyment. Because it totally doesn't. This isn't one of those things where it's like, oh well, they wrap things up. You can see how they left the door open for more. No, this is like an incomplete story. and I don't know. I was just I'm a little frustrated by it, but the tone of it, the show didn't quite land for me, I guess. But I keep wanting to say maybe that's just me in a way, So like, if you're interested in a relatively slow sort of fantasy fairy tale that often feels more like a poem than a story, like if that sounds good to you, that's
Yeah.
kind of what this is.
I mean, personally, sounds like it'll put me to sleep, but each to each
Yeah,
their own. Yeah, I think I told you after I saw the first episode, it's going to fall into a binge if I ever have time bucket, and we'll see if we ever get there.
right on.
Yeah. Yeah, so on my end, we had the first episode of Loki last week. I have a recap up on the site about that. Next episode coming out Thursday night, and I'll be recapping each of the 6 episodes. I found it to be quite good. Loki sort of stands alone as one of the really good entries of the MCU television library we have so far. So we referenced that there's going to be a huge upheaval with MCU television going forward, especially in this Daredevil show and all the things that they have going forward. But this one, the first season, was very well done, very creative, very poignant, had some real themes beyond just let's connect to everything else. And I thought in the first episode, they made some smart decisions of how they connected things, how they brought back some stories from the first season, and how they didn't try to introduce us to too much, but tried to really just sort of set the stage for what might be a not a capsule show, but something where we're not trying to expand the concept of the multiverse. We're actually trying to rein things in a little bit. We'll save that big stuff for the movies. But I found that first episode to be quite good.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I haven't watched it, but yeah, I mean, I've gathered, and I read your recap, I've gathered. I mean, it's interesting because this was or is very much in the multiverse. Like, wasn't the first season of Loki what kind of opened that?
Yeah, the first season of Loki, particularly the finale, was almost seen as the point that, for lack of a better term, blew open the doors of the multiverse. But some of the decisions, and if I don't want to say anything about this episode, people haven't seen it, but some of the decisions they make of how they could have gone with that, I think were smartly done in a way to keep a little bit more insulated and keep it away from some of the real criticism that things like Spider-Man: No Way Home and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness have seen. I have faith that they're gonna do a good job with this season.
Cool. Cool.
And then my stress relief show is back, my friend. This is the show I watched, but I'm like, I need something to just calm down. So if anyone else out there watches the Great British Baking Show, this is like my sit and relax and watch people with British accents make good food. So it's a calming thing for me. It's like a cup of hot tea for me.
I can see that. I think a lot of people like the show.
No,
I haven't checked it out, but right in line with what you're saying, I can imagine how it's calming or something like this.
Yeah, so I watched the first episode. There's 2 episodes out so far. I watched the first one, and I invited my wife and son to watch with me, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, the place where they do this is so beautiful." They're out in a tent on the English countryside, and they have these really quaint sort of rustic sort of settings, and so it's more than just like chaotic cooking in a kitchen. They make it so that you sort of you're calm and you're relaxed, and there's a little bit of British humor mixed into everything. So it's one of my I need to wind down shows. It really puts me in that kind of mood.
Awesome.
Love it.
Good deal, man. Well, so let's get to Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So as per usual, what we're gonna do is we'll take a short little break, like 10 seconds of music kind of thing. On the other side of that, we are going to dig into Breaking Bad season 5, episode 14, Ozymandias, which I think there are 2 episodes after this. So we're like right at the end of Breaking Bad.
Yes.
Spoilers on the table for all of Breaking Bad. I don't know. There might be some mild chance there's a Better Call Saul spoiler that happens.
I think there's a good chance there's some Saul spoilers in there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like mention that. So hopefully you've seen both shows. So if not, beware. If you want to listen anyway, feel free, right? But it goes down in this episode. I think that's part of why Ryan chose this one. There's a lot of stuff in here where, yeah. So okay, again, Take about 10 seconds and we'll pick up on the other side.
Okay, we are back looking at my second entry in our greatest episodes and our Mount Rushmore of episodes. This episode I chose for today was episode 14, season 5 of Breaking Bad, Ozymandias. This is no surprise to people that like to peruse top episodes of television ever lists online. This is on a lot of them, and it certainly has been on mine for quite some time. I'll give a quick synopsis of this, sort of an intro to or maybe my exposure to this and to this show, and let's discuss it. So Ozymandias picks up right where episode 13 left off, where there is a shootout happening in the desert between Hank and Agent Gomez, the DEA agents, and Jack and his Aryan group that have been hired previously by Walt to carry out some in prison killings. They've been hired before to carry out some drug manufacturing and distribution. But what happens is Walt begs Jack not to kill Hank. He even offers Jack all 80 million of his money in exchange for Hank's life. Does not work. Jack executes Hank, takes all the money except for one barrel, which he leaves for Walt. And then they take Jesse hostage here because Jesse has been informing the DEA about what's been going on. They force Jesse to help Todd cook meth under the fear of his girlfriend and the girlfriend's son could be harmed if he does not. And then we see back at back in Albuquerque that Marie and Skylar believe that Walt has been arrested because Hank had called them in the previous episode. That turns out to not end up being what happens. Skylar, when she sees Walt, attacks him. Walt Jr. defends his mom. They call the police on Walt, and Walt takes Holly. He runs away with her, their baby girl. Later on, sort of has this, I don't know, this emotion change, this change of heart, and calls them very personal reason, knowing that the police are listening in, takes full responsibility for everything, and leaves Holly to go off and to live a new life with the vacuum cleaner repairman who can get him into a new place. So this sort of sets up, as you said, the last 2 episodes of the series, which while full of a lot of action and drama, may not necessarily match the action that happens here. This is, in terms of drama, action, emotion, really sort of runs the gambit of all of these things. My experience with this is I was not all in on Breaking Bad from the beginning, but realized how many people were watching it, how many people had said what a good show it was. And so I literally binged the whole thing through this episode. And this was the episode that I caught up with in real time when it first aired. And so it was a good point to say, oh my gosh, now there are 2 episodes left. I was able to watch those with the rest of the world. And so maybe that certainly has an impact on me in terms of what I felt about this episode. But boy, there is a lot here. And it is, a culmination of what this entire 5 seasons of the show is.
Yeah, man, the Breaking Bad binge is intense.
Yes.
I think I got into it maybe 2 seasons were out or something like that. It's funny because I'm pretty sure I started watching it on DVD by mail from Netflix.
The Netflix model, yeah.
Netflix really helped the show, honestly. It
Yeah.
really took off with streaming and whatever that's worth. But yeah, it's striking to me, one of the things we noted, and we mentioned the Vince Gilligan interview earlier. It was the 10th anniversary of the finale very recently on September 29th. And so it's kind of striking to me in the context of talking about this episode that it had been 10 years since I'd seen it.
Yeah.
And I've been meaning to revisit Breaking Bad pretty much since Better Call Saul ended, and I kind of do still want to do that when Better Call Saul still feels fresh, because I think it'd be interesting to go in that direction. But we'll see. Yeah, it's a great episode. One thing that did kind of occur to me personally, just jumping in and watching this episode, not in the middle of a full rewatch or anything like that. Again, it's been 10 years. Is taking it out of context. I don't know how to put this exactly. I think it was way more striking in context of being in the midst of the story, having just seen the previous episode, or in my instance, I think it had been a week since I'd seen the previous episode, but that's still, that's just how TV works. But because almost that too was, I kind of remember that, because you're hanging there for a week. You've already got the setup out there in the desert, basically. And you can kind of see where that's gonna go, probably.
It's going to go badly because we know what show we're watching.
Yeah, which is interesting. So I don't know.
Let me comment on that, just because this sort of exercise and preparing for this, and the fact you mentioned this is the 10th anniversary of the finale. This week actually is also the 12th anniversary of Face Off, the last episode of season 4. It inspired me. So what I did was I started with Face Off and I went through the end of the series.
Oh, you did.
So got some of the context, which I think, now hearing you say it, you're exactly right. There are some unbelievably powerful things that happen leading into this episode and right after this episode, right? Obviously we're left with this sort of thing where Holly's been kidnapped and he's left her with a fire station. So you just have these things that build on either side of it. I'm frankly not surprised to hear you say that. Yeah, just sort of out of context, there probably would be more that we could have to it if it was in, because just watching that last season just reminded me how powerful this episode was.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I have the context, like I see the show. I remember the context, but in terms of the viewing experience, it seemed, all of this, so much of this is so intense, but it's almost just taking just this episode. It almost felt to me like, I don't quite want to say cartoonish, but it just feels so overblown. Like it just feels so, Walt feels so evil to me watching this episode. Just so, and what the show is about in terms of Breaking Bad, about his more like moral degradation, But anyway, it's a great episode. I did want to mention the poem.
Let's talk about the poem.
I think maybe I want to read the poem. It's pretty short.
Please.
I don't know how familiar you are with the poem, or people listening. Percy Shelley. And I don't know. I guess that people know this, but here's the poem, because I was looking back at it as we were preparing, and I don't know. It's always striking me to think about this episode and this poem and the fact they named it this. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. Okay. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains, round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. It almost feels too on the nose to me.
You wonder, did he read this before creating the entire show?
Yeah, like, does this inspire the episode?
Yes.
Seriously, it's not just and I think the setting with the sand and everything is feeding into that as well.
Does it even inspire the entire series, right? A man
Right.
who becomes, thanks to what he sees are all his mighty works, becoming a king, someone who is on top of everything and every bit of this industry that he is that he is working in, and yet all around him towards the end of this is just nothing, just sand. It's sort of, there's the imagery of being laid waste, is sort of who dies there in the desert with him, but also this, he's completely alone in this area that really can provide him nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's striking. I mean, the turn, I know one of the things that you were pointed out in our notes here is about his offer to give him the money.
Yeah.
And to kind of jump to that, I mean, or to feed that into something a little bit broader in my mind. The turns that Walt takes are kind of interesting. You know, he's begging for Hank's life because Hank is family. And I think part of your question is, how much does he mean that? We should talk about that. And then, well, it doesn't go that way,
Yeah.
you know. But then, I'm sorry, what's the guy's name again? What's the Jack?
Yeah.
They load up, you know. Well, first he figures out, like, hey man, you didn't give me normal directions. You gave me GPS coordinates to come here. Let's go find that and dig, you know. So they find the money. And so he loads up all the money, but then he's going to leave Walt a barrel, and is like insisting that Walt say that they're good.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But at that point, Walt says, "No, you owe me the death of Jesse Pinkman."
Mm-hmm. Which is going to come back in a big way 2 episodes later.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, everything happens, and then also El Camino, you know, which I don't know if we want to throw that in here at all as we move forward, but it's a striking turn because it's like then the level of spite that he has for Jesse, which I get. Jesse has been collaborating with DEA. He's wrecked the whole thing, I guess, from Walt's point of view. Maybe he's even turning at this point to think that Jesse is responsible for Hank dying.
Yeah.
I don't know if psychology is part of what we're getting into here.
Yeah.
But part of what's striking to me is, he makes the offer to give the money to save Hank's life, but then there's like hardly any or maybe no space where Walt is devastated by what's happened before it turns to you got to kill Jesse.
Yeah, we're sort of left with this period of the episode that's not, I mean, for clear reasons, it's not there, where it must have taken them a long time to dig up 7 barrels of cash and get it out of the ground, right? And when they get done and we see them loading them on the truck, Walt is still sort of laying in the sand. So he's sort of been staring at Hank for hours, I guess, just sort of not only trying to come to grips with how this happened, but realize what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
And so, his first thing when they pull him up and try to say, "Are we good? We're leaving you money. Are you good?" is he wants to confront Jesse. He wants to tell Jesse, "Remember what happened to Jane? I could have prevented that. I watched that happen." And so his immediate reaction to that is, Jesse, all this could have been avoided because of you. So let me make sure, if they take you off and are about to kill you, that you understand that I'm still on top. I'm still the one that's running these things.
No, that's a good point. So he has sort of sat with it for a while, if you think about it realistic terms. And then I think what I kind of suggested, what you suggested, I think this is where we're landing, right? That in Walt's mind, he does come around to blaming Jesse for everything, including Hank's death.
And he can't understand why Jesse can't see that what he did to Brock was just all part of the plan to keep them safe, to keep them out of harm, to keep them, in a position where they can continue doing what they're doing, and thinks that Jesse should just overlook that and forgive him, I guess.
Yeah, like, kid's okay.
Yeah.
get over it kind of thing or something. I don't remember the details of that. That whole thing with Brock actually was like the biggest thing that bugged me about Breaking Bad, because it's like they never showed Walt doing it, and I continue to struggle with the belief that he could have done it, like not morally,
Hmm.
practically. I
Practically.
kept having this feeling like, well, I didn't show that because they couldn't figure out how.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's anyhow that's not
You-
in here nor
you're
there in a way.
you're jumping into one of my issues with the finale is how did he get a sealed pack of stevia with ricin in it in in a spot where Lydia was going to pick it up and use it in her tea? But anyway, we're that's a
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does, and this is I guess part of what I was saying about watching it out of context and how it landed for me. Maybe it felt a little less realistic, if that's fair. It's
Mhm.
just it's overblown,
Yeah.
and I think that's fine, and that's what this show is. But there are multiple moments in Breaking Bad where it
Yeah.
really engages in something that is larger than life, and I don't necessarily mean in a way that lands well for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I always say like fine, you know like I mean, I don't know, maybe this is just me and now I'm like ranting about Breaking Bad things, but like the twins, they always kind of like
Yeah.
really they don't talk, and
Yeah.
okay, anyhow, I everyone listening, I love Breaking Bad. I think it's great. I think it's an all-time great show. I think it's an all-time great episode. These are like, in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
minor quibbles that I have with the show. Um, and then we have Todd.
What's that? Todd.
Todd.
Yeah. So Jesse Plemons in a fantastic role. Yeah.
God, Todd. Jesse. I mean, Jesse Plemons, I think, is a really good actor, and
Fantastic.
I've seen him in various things where he's been really, really good. And I still always think that's Todd.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This
And
was my first introduction. It is always what I think of when I see him.
every other role he has ever played that I've seen him, he has to first overcome being Todd. And the credit I want to give to Jesse Plemons is he always has done it.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
always managed to suck me in and get me to like forget about him being Todd. Um, Todd is what I think is really makes El Camino stand up as a film.
Hmm.
Of course, the moment before this when he kills the kid always comes to mind.
Yeah.
And what we see of him here is cold demeanor. And it's like he's the one who says, hey, Uncle Jack, maybe we shouldn't kill Jesse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not right now. We should see what else he knows.
It is a really interesting mix of sort of baby-faced awe shuckness, when he's around certain people like Lydia and around Walt, combined with this sort of cold-blooded calculating. It's like, yeah, I'll shoot a kid at a moment's notice just to make sure that there are no witnesses, to what can we use out of Jesse, even to the point of we will gun down his girlfriend in front of him to make sure that he keeps cooking for us. I mean, it's just sort of this weird dichotomy of how he can be both of those things. I just thought he's fantastic in this last season.
Yeah, he's really good. It's like his demeanor is that he's a nice guy, but he's also a sociopath.
Yes.
Like he's an utter and so yeah, that's what else we got here.
So let me ask you about you referenced the 80 million, and he offers it to save Hake's life. Jesse and Hank and Steve Gomez were hitting a huge brick wall because they couldn't catch Walt. They couldn't find any evidence. They couldn't ever get out ahead of him. And so they were scrambling, trying to find something. And so they trick him by sending him this photo of Jesse sending a photo saying, look what I found. And it's a photo of a barrel in the sand with money in it. And so Walt speeds out to where he's buried his money to make sure no one is taking it. And they follow him. They track his phone. That's how they end up getting him in, and what leads to this whole disaster. Is this the only mistake that Walt makes? It always just seems like he is 9 steps ahead of everybody. is it just greed that's caused this to happen? Because Walt just never seems to be this haphazard, this sort of let me just run. But it is, I think, just a sense of he realizing toward the end here that he only did this for money. He didn't do this for family. He didn't do this he did this for money. And that was it. And that just sort of caught me as I rewatched this, that he was just so quick to react to a photo from Jesse that he was just completely driven by making sure no one took that 80 million.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's definitely true that throughout the series, you have Walt kind of thinking 3 steps ahead for the most part and so on. I think it makes enough sense, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe he's being impulsive. But as you say, like, he experiences this threat to the money that he's earned, that and kind of speaking in Walt's voice there a little bit. Maybe he doesn't think it through. I mean, I think you have a fair point.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you thought it through, well, there's 2 possibilities, right? Possibility 1 is that they really are at the spot where you buried your money.
Right.
You're going to drive out there? That doesn't seem like the best plan.
Yeah, no.
And like, possibility 2 is that they aren't.
Yeah.
And
so either way, why would you do it?
Either way, driving out there on reflection is not the right plan. But when do you rewatch this in context? At what point does he call up Jack, though? Does he call up Jack when he's on his way out there, or
when he realizes that he gets out there and there's no one there, he understands that they've tricked him. And so he knows, or he understands then, that he believes that the DEA is coming. So he calls Jack as backup. Basically, you owe me for the Jesse Pinkman thing. You haven't done it. You need to come do this instead. And so he gets them out there for that reason, even though once he sees Hank show up, he tells them on the phone, don't come. It's off. Don't come out here. They come anyway, of course.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing.
But it's
so this is the thing. It's just, I think it's important to read this, whatever you think of the plausibility, thematically. Part of the point here is Walt did this, right? Walt brought this on himself. Look upon your own works in despair, if you like. And because by calling Jack, he does sort of win, but it means Hank dies. And so I don't know. I mean, is it in character for him to offer the money? Like, I think there are 2 possibilities. One, which also wouldn't be super rational on Walt's part, is for him to think that, well, somehow if I can get them to agree to take the money, I can then turn the tables on them before they get away with the money. But there's like multiple guys, that have guts. So I don't know if that makes sense.
That doesn't matter in the finale, though.
Well, and he's got like schemes.
Yeah, he's got to scheme something.
Do you know this? In that interview, and this will be something I put in the show notes with Vince Gilligan, the recent interview we mentioned. They did not have a plan for the machine gun. Did you know this?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we know this trope, the Chekhov's gun thing, where you introduce a gun, you have to explain why it's there. It's like, this is the embodiment of that. Yeah. They had no idea what they were going to do with it.
It is. I just can't. The writer's room for this must have been great. And Better Call Saul too. Both shows, by the way, I think are wonderfully written.
Yeah.
But that they would do things like this, and say, what would be cool is like a big machine gun in his trunk.
Yeah.
And then they figure out later how to pay that off.
Yeah. We're gonna write ourselves into this corner and then figure out a way out. Yeah. But they became famous for doing that in Better Call Saul. They consistently set up these things and wrote themselves out of it in an effective way, I thought.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's part of why that show is so great. It's from the starting point of Breaking Bad exists. I think a lot of prequels bear such a thing in mind too much.
Yep.
Better Call Saul didn't. They said, well, Breaking Bad exists. Where do we start? Let's start all the way back here. How do we get to Breaking Bad? We'll figure it out.
We don't know. And by the way, we're also connected to what happens in the future post Breaking Bad. That's why that show is so
Oh yeah, they doubled down with the Gene
Yeah.
stuff too. This is the thing, man. They did not know where all of this was going. I know there are fans out there in the world who somehow think they had a master plan, and
Yeah.
it's like, just listen to these people
Yeah.
who wrote these shows, and they didn't, and that's part of what's so impressive.
Yeah.
That they set these tasks for themselves that they then had to figure out how to achieve, and that they did so brilliantly.
Yeah. Let's talk about Skylar, Marie, and Walt Jr. Give me your power rankings of performance in this episode. Who's the best?
Power rankings.
I've been writing too much football lately. I got power rankings.
I mean, of what the performances? God, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna go. Wait, so if it's power rankings, I should go in like reverse order, right? So I guess coming in at number 3, I'll do Walt Jr. Always great. And well, no, actually, he should be number 2. Number 3, I'm going to put Marie.
I agree.
Marie's great, right? But Walt Jr. is going to get in there at number 2 because I'm remembering him reacting to finding out finally this thing, about his father and everything, and his world just crashing down around him. And then, number 1, Skylar. I've always been a Skylar defender.
Yeah. And that same piece of Vince Gilligan, still to this day, he and many others are having to defend Skylar. There were just so many critics of hers and that performance and that character. But yeah, I mean, put yourself in her shoes and think about what type of person and character you would be.
I think it's a real kind of worry that I don't want to put too much weight on, because whatever, I love TV and I like Breaking Bad. But the fact that it seems like there are at least some people out in the world who just kept rooting for Walt the whole time through is troubling to me, and I certainly don't think was the intention. The intention is pretty out there. It's in the name of the show and so on, right? And so it's something I've thought about, how we get kind of influenced by the protagonist.
Yeah.
Because Walt's very much the protagonist of this is Walt's story.
Absolutely.
Right. Breaking Bad is Walt's story. Everyone else is just a character in it. But that can influence people to then take that point of view to such an extent.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I don't know, with my philosophy background, part of me starts thinking like, I don't know, man, maybe Plato was right. Kick the poets out of the Republic. We're just not mature enough for this.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
we can so easily be persuaded to root against someone who is trying, even failing, but trying to be a moral compass, like Skylar was, trying to protect the family, like Skylar actually was, and doing things with these constantly revealing things that Walt has going on, that we just start actively rooting against her because we want this guy who has broke bad to succeed. Right? The show made us think that, or made a lot of people think that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's just I want to say that people who root for Walt all the way through the finale are watching it wrong, but I don't know if that's fair. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. I just think that that's not what's going on here. And Walt's a really powerful character, but as I said a while ago, by this point, just fully evil, and it can be really interesting to explore that moral psychology, and I think it is. And well, let me say one more thing. Okay. If they're out there rooting for Walt to win, this is him winning.
Yes.
Not more so than the finale. This is him winning. Do you like that? Right?
Yeah.
Like Hank dying and all of that, right? Because otherwise potentially he's arrested by the DEA and all of that. You hit the point. This is the crux of it. At this point, either he's going to be arrested by Hank, or Hank's going to die. So if you want Walt to win, he won. Hank's dead, and then but these Nazis stole his money,
Right.
so he's got to go like win again, you
Yeah.
know. But anyhow,
And I guess that leads to a question I put in here, which is the Walt of the last two episodes the same Walt from the rest of the series? He seems to, in this moment in the bathroom when he has Holly, and Holly is crying and wants her mama, does he change in that moment? Because you're right, with Hank dying, Jesse getting this unbelievably terrible thing happening to him, that is Walt that we know through episode 14 of season 5 winning. And yet he sort of has this change after the end of this episode. I think we have sort of two versions of Walt here. And I don't know that at the finale, the winning for Walt is the same as what it would have been in episode 14.
Yeah. I mean, well, maybe it's this. Maybe you could point to this as the point where Walt realizes in his own mind that he did it for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's been telling himself that he did it for his family, perhaps all the way through to this.
Yeah.
And he realizes in that bathroom.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing. He's pure evil. It's not that he looks at the baby and goes, I feel bad for this baby. This baby wants its mommy. No, he thinks, what am I going to do with a baby?
Yeah,
right?
I have thought very much about the two sides of that coin. It's sort of, how do you view that? Yes.
Like, here I am, I'm changing diapers. I'm about to call the disappearer man. This is a problem to have this baby.
Yeah.
And so he ditches the baby, and I think maybe that this is the point where he kind of realizes that what he tried to tell himself about how he did it for his family is wrong. He did it for himself and to succeed, right?
Yeah.
And so even then, if we think about what happens after this, and I'm working from like a 10-year-old memory here, so tell me if I'm getting anything wrong. But he goes to New Hampshire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he sees stuff on the news, particularly with Gretchen and what's his name, right? Isn't that primarily?
Yeah. So he is desperately trying to find a way to get some money to his kids. He hasn't been able to do that.
Right.
He has this one barrel of money left, so he breaks out of his isolation in the house there, walks into town so he can mail a box of money to his kids. And while he's at a bar there, he sees this interview on Charlie Rose with Gretchen, that it was the couple there that started the Gray Matter company with him. And they talk in that interview about how they're funding this sort of drug rehabilitation in the Southwest, how the man that they knew who was so kind and sweet before is this monster now. They have no idea who he is. And so that not only triggers for him what he can do next, how he can use them, but also that he's got unfinished business to take care of.
Yeah. And I think there's a through line there. I want to say something about hubris. Hubris is the term I've been trying to work in, because I think that it's ultimately Walt's hubris that's coming onto full display. And just like with the ancient Greeks, that means it's a downfall, right? I mean, so even if you're looking at the very finale of the show, maybe to some degree you could argue that he quote unquote wins because it comes back with the machine gun and all of that, but he dies, right? So I don't know. He's caught up in the thing, and everything going back to the gray matter motivation.
Yeah,
because this is the thing. Go back to season 1. Ask them for money.
Yeah, exactly.
Accept their hope. You've got cancer. These erstwhile friends of yours will help you.
Yeah.
But
he's too much hubris to do that.
No, he can't swallow his pride to do that. And
he can't do that then. And in the finale, when he shows up at their house and gives them the $10 million or whatever it is, he tells them, if there are taxes, legal fees, anything that has to be paid because of you setting up that trust, do not use one dime of your own money. It comes out of this. Like, you will not help my family because I have helped my family. And that's essentially what it's who he was to the end.
Yeah, that boils down to it. And I know we veered now into talking about the finale of Breaking Bad,
Mhm.
but what do you think? To raise one more question about that, what do you think about him letting Jesse go at the end of the finale?
I think it's all wrapped up into the idea that he understands that he did this for himself, that he used his family, he used Jesse. Jesse was not a partner to him. Gus was not a partner. Mike was not a partner. He used all of them to benefit what he wanted to do. And so in some way, by setting up the money for his kids, by going to see Skylar, by letting Jesse go free, he's releasing them of that burden of who he was. And he is understanding that if there's going to be any way that I can possibly try to redeem all that I've done, which I don't know that's what he's trying to do, but if he can redeem all that he's done, he has to release them of that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how I think about his motivations, but I'm not sure I have an alternate account.
Yeah,
Other than he does let Jesse go, and I mean, maybe he at that point sees how much Jesse has suffered by that point, and is just like, well,
yeah,
that was enough.
yeah.
Go live with that. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Yeah, Jesse is not, I mean, free in a lot of ways. Jesse has the burden of what happened to Andrea, I think is his girlfriend's name, the burden of what happened, all, the body count they left behind and all the things that they've done. He's not free. Obviously, we see the events of the movie next, but yeah, it's, what were Walt's motivations there? Like, instead of us just both dying together, you go live with all that you've done. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Big shout out to Jesse though, and El Camino, which I enjoy. If people still haven't watched El Camino, go watch it. I don't know how much we've spoiled it in the midst here, but kind of been presuming that people have seen it. Pulling it back to Ozymandias, other things we want to hit on here?
No, I think that's a great description. I mean, just looking back on these words again, look on my works, you mighty in despair. Nothing beside remains round the decay of that colossal wreck. I mean, it's just, pretty on the nose for what happens here, not only in this episode, but through the entire series.
Yeah, indeed. We never know that this episode was directed by Rian Johnson. And
it was. He of later Star Wars, Star Wars,
The Last
Jedi, and Knives Out fame. Yeah, he's got a lot of movie fame still to come, but did a couple of Breaking Bad episodes, including this one.
Well, and he's done Poker Face too.
Poker Face, that's right.
The TV run.
Yep.
Rian Johnson's been on my radar since back in this time.
Yeah,
directed Fly. He directed a few Bad episodes. It's like,
I forgot about he directed The Fly. That's right.
Well, he's an up and comer, and then he directed the only worthwhile Star Wars sequel. Just throw that out there. The Last Jedi.
J.J. Abrams proceeded to ruin. Yeah,
the only one that warrants existing in my mind. Anyway, I'm trolling people to some degree, while also expressing my honest opinion for this. But all right, good.
Boy.
So
what are we gonna do next?
Yeah, next up, another entry from me. I am choosing an episode of Twin Peaks.
All right,
Press is just a little bit for everyone. Ryan has not seen Twin Peaks unless he's started watching it since I told him we were going to do this episode.
Nope.
So I have chosen. See, I have to go through the whole thing about the titles of these episodes. Originally when they made Twin Peaks, okay, David Lynch and Mark Frost called the pilot episode Pilot. Okay, nothing out of the ordinary so far.
Right.
The show gets picked up. The next episode they titled the episode Episode 1.
Okay.
and then the next one is Episode 2, and so on. Season 2 finale is Episode 29.
Okay. I think I'm following.
So look, part of the problem, I just can't avoid talking about this, is that for those of us who've been into Twin Peaks for some time, like me, this is how I know the episodes. I want to say Episode 2. I know which episode that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's this one. But So then they, when the show aired in Germany, the German caption company made up titles.
Oh boy.
Seriously. And those get used. You pull it up on, Netflix or whatever, and that'll be there. And then, of course, also in the age of streaming, they just shove it in the same framework as everything else and call the pilot, S1E1 and then S1E2 and then S1E3. So there's all this confusion
Okay.
about which episode is which. And part of what I hate about this is I feel like those German titles, when they released the show on VHS and then on DVD,
Yeah.
not there because they're not official. So
Oh boy.
it's just a mess. And I hate it because I still want to use the original episode numbering.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm right about that. But at the same time, I should just give in to all the forces of the world because you don't even find the original episode numbering on like IMDb. It's just not there.
Not there. So let me get this clear. I am watching the 3rd episode of season 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you're watching, as I put it to you,
Okay.
episode 2,
you given
also
me
known as season 1, episode 3, also known as Zen or the Skill to Catch a Killer. That's the made up German.
Oh boy.
Right.
Okay.
But people use those. And there's something tempting about using them because you'd be clearer in terms of what episode you're referring to make sure, someone's not confused about the numbering. But I don't even know these titles. I have to look these titles up.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
See, I'm going to be. I know how lost I'm going to be, but you've at least given me a small gift, which is I want to watch the show anyways, and so you've given me the 3rd episode that ever aired, so it's not going to be too much of a burden before next week before me to watch each of these first 3. So that's going to be my goal. So at least can talk through that.
That probably is the best plan.
Yeah,
and I will say to everyone listening, I know we've called this our Mount Rushmores of episodes, but I purposefully picked one towards the beginning.
Okay, good.
So I don't necessarily know that I would go on record saying this is the best episode of Twin Peaks, but it's in the conversation.
Okay,
and it's towards the beginning, and yeah,
I'm happy to get on a podcast with you and just hear you monologue for 45 minutes about the show, because I feel like if I was like to pick up on episode 42, I would have absolutely no concept of what's going on.
There
are there 42 episodes?
29 episodes in the first 2 seasons, including the pilot. There's 30 episodes in the first 2 seasons, and then there's 18 in season 3.
Okay,
so I guess that's 48 overall.
I guess right. Okay, all right. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it. I'll get 3 under my belt before we talk next.
Cool. Enough rambling about Twin Peaks for today. More Twin Peaks talk next week. Looking forward to it. As always, thanks everyone for listening. Please, consider leaving us a rating review wherever you're listening to the podcast. You can also find the podcast on the YouTube channel. You want to find us there, TV Obsessive on YouTube. On social media, give us a search, TV Obsessive on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky now, Mastodon. And all right. I mean, I guess about that. Oh, you want to plug your if you're on Twitter, X, I'm Caemeron CC. You want to find me there. I don't know how much I'm using Twitter anymore. I have the same handle on Blue Sky. If anyone's over on Blue Sky, find me on Blue Sky. That's fine.
I might have to move there. I am at Cable Box. We're there on Twitter /X/Musk, whatever it's called. But I may
the fact that we're recording this past week, they got rid of the headlines on article links. And I don't know, man. I run a website where primarily what I want to do is share our articles on Twitter.
That's right.
So I'm not feeling great about where that place is going. But anyway, we'll leave it there. Thanks always for listening, and we'll be back with you next week.
See you next time.